And we're live, sir.
Because you come to Amazon.
Yes, you said, Michael?
And we're live.
Great. Ready? All right. Good evening and welcome to the City of Helotes' special meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission. It is November the 14th at 7 p.m. Ask the Commission Secretary to call the roll, please.
Greg Michelle,
Here.
Buck Russell,
Here.
Jason Whiteman. Here. And Fairway,
Here,
and Alex Blue present.
From staff, we have Michael Gallardo and Glenn Goolsby's back here. And from City Council, Jen Sones and Cynthia Massey. Did I miss anybody from council? Is David Cato in the room? Not at the moment. Okay. We will move to our first item tonight, which is a public hearing, which is to give all interested persons the right to appear and be heard on a land use request by M&O Investment Group LLC for a planned unit development establishing trailhead at Helotes, a proposed mixed-use commercial and residential project on property zoned General Business District B3, located generally at 14410 Bandera Road, Helotes, and identified as BCAT property IDs 242100, 1097255, and 242130. I'm so glad to see so many people here. We very much appreciate your interest and your participation in the public hearing. If you haven't been in one before, if it's been a while, just a refresher on the way we do it. We have cards here that we'll use to call people up. You will have 3 minutes to share your thoughts about the item. We ask that you observe that 3-minute time limit, and if you get cut off, apologies in advance, but we want to give everybody an opportunity to speak. We ask you to address your comments to us up here, and it's not an opportunity to engage the audience, nor is it a time for questioning and asking questions of us and having dialogue. It's really for us to hear from you. And then lastly, we really would appreciate throughout the whole public hearing and the whole meeting to have no demonstrations. We really frown upon any type of, clapping or booing or anything like that. We have an officer here with us if need be, but I would hope that would not be necessary. But hope everybody keeps it civil and respectful as we work through the issues tonight. And then lastly, as I call you up, if I mispronounce your name, please correct me. I apologize. And do put your address. We do ask that you put your address on record. So your name and address, and then you'll have 3 minutes to speak. And Officer Fontaines, I could go ahead and take that. Thank you much. All right. So we will open the public hearing. It is 7:03. And we will first call up Michael and Shauna. Is it Miss, help me out?
Mishong.
Mishong, thank you.
Shauna and Michael Mishong. We live at 13907 Circle A Trail in Helotes Park Estates. We are opposed to the changing of the zoning on the track for PUD. We would like to keep it the B3 for businesses. We'll keep it sweet. That's it.
All right. Thank you. Richard Acuna.
Evening. My name is Richard Acuna. I reside at 10826 Bar X Trail, and I do reside within 200 feet of the planned development. So I am here today to inform you that I am strongly opposed to the planned development by M&O Partners. I feel that the proposed development will result in another high-density complex similar to the one that's going to be built on Bandera Road and Scenic Loop. So when you combine these two projects, you're looking at a total of over 450 units with multiple residents residing in each unit. So what's going to happen when that occurs? I feel that it's not only going to lead to or require more city resources, but it's going to be a result in more traffic congestion, pedestrian traffic, various forms of crime, trespassing into private property, increased noise and lighting to the nearby residents, and a number of other things that I'm sure some of the other residents will share with you. So my vision for this piece of property is really a combination of high-end shops and restaurants, maybe other activities that will attract people from all parts of our surrounding area. Today, we have to drive to Bernie, La Cantera, other parts of the city to really get this experience. Why can't we have it in our own backyard here in Old Town Helotes? So in closing, I just want to urge the city of Helotes leadership to really take the time to think outside the box, use some of the money you have in your budget, explore the options, and not just settle for another high-density complex that really detracts from the old charm or the charm of Old Town Helotes. Thank you.
Thank you. Chris Cooley.
I'm Chris Cooley. My wife Debbie and I live at 4306 Starcross Trail in Helotes Park Estates. My family and I have lived in Helotes for 47 years. We moved here for, among other reasons, the small community feel, the large lots, the NISD schools, peace and quiet of being away from the big city. We loved Helotes the way it was then, and while we wished it could remain that way, we realized that growth and change were inevitable. One of Helotes' biggest assets is Old Town, including floors and all the other historic buildings and businesses which exist there. We cannot envision hundreds of residential units across the highway being something that would benefit our historic city. Ironically, I read an article recently in a local magazine with a quote, "Where there is no vision, the people perish." Applied to municipalities, a city without a vision will die or lose its identity. Close quote. We certainly do not want a large apartment complex at this site to cause Helotes to lose its identity. Today, with all the homes and apartments that have been built immediately outside of Helotes, our infrastructure has not been able to handle all of the traffic and congestion which occurs in Helotes every single day. Adding 220 rental units to the heart of Helotes on Bandera Road will only cause more traffic congestion, auto accidents, and possibly serious pedestrian accidents due to residents of the proposed project crossing Highway 16 and other things. We all have the responsibility to do our part in helping preserve the city of Helotes and the history of our town and creating a better place for our residents and visitors to enjoy. Rather than having a high-density retail development as proposed by M&O Partners, we feel a better use of this property would be, for example, number one, some casual dining restaurants, of which we have very few here in Helotes, as we mainly have fast food options. Most of us leave Helotes and spend our money elsewhere, like at La Cantera, The Rim, Bandera Point, Leon Springs, Bernie, and other places outside of the Helotes city limits. Number two, shops. For example, clothing, specialty stores, sporting goods, books, gifts, household items, maybe even a spa. We currently leave Helotes and spend our money at La Cantera, The Rim, Hebner Oaks, Bandera Point, Leon Springs, etc. And number three, groceries. Yes, we have an H-E-B nearby, but what about attracting a specialty store like a Trader Joe's or Whole Foods? Just envision what a well-planned
Your time's up.
community.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, sir. Amy, is it Burial?
Yes, that's correct. Thank you. Good job. I usually get Miss early.
Pretty good.
Good evening. Thank you for your time. My name is Amy Burrell. I reside at 10006 Lazy J Trail, right across the street, Helotes, Texas, 78023. Thank all the citizens for showing up and for you guys showing up at the last minute, which really indicates the respect that you have for our community. I want to echo the sentiments of my fellow Helotans. There are many problems with this project, from traffic, congestion, crime, trespassing, you name it, it's got it. This is not what we want. This project does not belong here in our city. No one's hands are tied here. Your hands are not tied. This is the opportunity for our commissioners to stand up and send a strong message that this is not what we want. We want to be a city that you go to, not through. What makes us different from Braun? What makes us different from Culebra? We have this charming downtown. We have history, it's preserved. We have things that make us very unique. Why don't we focus on that and not just become an alleyway of apartments? They're going to do it beyond us in Bandera. The traffic is inevitable. I guarantee it. It will happen, but we don't have to welcome it. Let's be a preserve. Let's be something special, right? Let's preserve ourselves. I think this is an opportunity to send a strong message to M&O and everybody else that's eyeing Helotes as a honeypot. This is not what we want. We're here. Do you ever see so many people here? Not really. I mean, it's rare. We are passionate about this. We do not want this in our community. Please let this be the nail in the coffin for this type of development in our city. We do not want this in Helotes. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Sheena, is it Mazzio?
Bad handwriting, sorry.
Blame it on the handwriting, right?
Yep.
Thank you.
Sheena Murillo, and I live at 13902 Circle A Trail in Helotes Park Estates. I moved here with my husband in 2006. We chose the area because you could actually see the stars. You could hear the music coming from Flora's Country Store and the music and all the fun that was going on there. We are opposed. I am opposed to having apartments. I would like to see something that would complement the Old Town Helotes feel. We loved it that when we had our child, we could have the Old Town feel of having the parade, Santa Claus pictures, market days, movie night. And if you bring in a lot more congestion with apartments, a lot more people, it's gonna destroy that Old Town feel. Everything is growing. Yes, traffic is bad. We expect that, but as was stated earlier, we want the Old Town feel. It will not complement Helotes, and it will not complement the Old Town feel. Thank you.
Thank you. Wally Muriel.
I'm Sheena's lesser half. We live at 13902 Circle A Trail. And for everything she just said, we moved here because of a small town feel. And renters, my feeling is renters just don't have a commitment to the community as a whole. And for everything everyone else has said, we want to preserve the history that is Helotes. The trail system that's already there doesn't need an apartment complex sitting on top of it. I'm all for what the market will sustain. You can't force businesses in here that don't want to be, and they can't force them to stay if the market won't sustain them. But this is not something that we want. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Ed Joyce. And Gina Joyce, right? Yeah. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Gina Joyce. My husband and I live at 14107 Circle A Trail in Helotes Park Estates. I come here to speak out against the proposed trailhead of Helotes. My husband and I moved here and purchased our home. We purchased it because it was in a beautiful and established neighborhood and a community. The property in question is zoned for business, not for a large rental community. I trust that our council board members will only approve something that would benefit our community. A large rental development will not benefit our community and our Helotes. I ask the council members to please do not grant the zoning variance and to please look at this property to enhance our community. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
I'm Gina's husband, Ed Joyce. I also live at 14107 Circle A, and I would just share her sentiments toward what you just read out there. And thank you all for your time and hearing us out tonight.
Thank you. Ruby Deering.
I
there. I'm Ruby Deering. I live on Bar X Trail in Helotes. We've lived there for 25 years and I absolutely love our community. And I oppose this development because I do not think it will benefit the citizens or the residents of Helotes. So I urge you to please shut it down. Thank you.
Can you just put your address on record for us, please?
That's 11015 Bar X Trail.
Thanks. Benjamin Cox.
Hi, Benjamin Cox, 9889 Cash Mountain Road. I was here at the previous P&Z meeting and listened to the M&O proposal. Took away, some information from that. They had made the claim that they had engaged Hops and Hounds to try to get them to open up a location there and that they were actively interested. My wife and I run dog rescue, and we do events at Hops and Hounds, and which has recently sold, and they're opening the downtown location. Talked to the owners at one of our events. They didn't know anything about this. They also mentioned, the Nextdoor app, and it's an open community. Anybody can post on anything. There's no control, no vetting. Took a handful of, those positive posts. And when you track the IP addresses, they go back to, 3 of them an office building in New Braunfels and 1 an office building in Austin, none of which are Helotes residents. When you go to their website, they talk about service, and direct quote from it, we are, can't read my own writing. So I'm committed to making sure that, the projects, that, we develop, fit within the fabric of the communities we serve. None of this fits the community, that we have here. It's high density. This is all low density housing. The retail stores, I did a quick, swing of all of the shopping centers in the area on my way here. It took an hour to do. It should have only taken about 15 minutes. There's over 23 empty storefronts today in much better locations than that side of Bandera, which is a 55-mile-an-hour highway. So if those 23 stores can't attract residents or tenants, what's going to happen there? We're going to get more vape shops, more payday loan places, more nail shops that we don't need. And it comes back down to, this is not a fit for our community. I work in private equity. I get it. They're trying to make money. That's the mission. But it's our job as the community to make sure that they're not making that money at the expense of our community. So thank you.
Thank you. Patrick McGowan.
Good evening, Chairman and Commissioners. I'm Patrick McGowan. I'm a resident at 10902 Bar X Trail in Helotes Park Estates, and I'm speaking in strong opposition to the Trailhead of Helotes zoning variance. There's a lot of reasons to dislike and deny the PUD application, including, first of all, this is only 13% of that property is being used for commercial property, if you consider a dog park and pickleball as commercial property. The residential density of this proposal is 45% larger than any other PUD that's been approved by this council or this commission. And this proposal is twice the density of the PUD that was proposed by next to Iron Horse Canyon, which this commission denied. The results of this proposal remain the same. You have renters trespassing within our backyard. I'm within 200 feet of this development. You have transient people, you have vandalism, you have traffic. But putting all that aside, whether you like this proposal or not, the question I have for the council is why in the world would we ever consider eliminating commercial development in Helotes? Converting valuable commercial zone property into high density rental communities that span a quarter of a mile across the street from Old Town Helotes is ridiculous. When the commission designated land use zoning, it intended to balance the need of residential and commercial, as well as other critical services within the city. This 16 to 21 acres that we're talking about today is intended for sit-down dining restaurants, specialty shops, entertainment, professional services, and other commercial type business development. And according to the B3 zoning, and it's not intended for rental units. These are the services that add value to the community and reduce the need for going to burning La Cantera and the Rim and other places outside of Helotes, which I was surprised to hear everybody else is doing the same. So when you look at Helotes today, you have very few restaurants, shops, bars, places for us to go. And there's very little development that's zoned commercial left in Helotes. And this is our biggest need, is bringing commercial development to Helotes. And I am concerned that, in fact, a bad decision today would lead to a decision that we cannot correct or reverse in the future. And I am seriously concerned about, if this happens, then we eliminate forever the possibility of commercial development on that property. So I am requesting that the Planning and Zoning Commission deny the zoning request that was before us today and allow the people of Helotes to benefit from commercial development and not benefit a single developer that is here for the sole purpose of profits. Thank you.
Thank you. Charles Roberts.
Yeah, Council, thank you for allowing me to speak. I really appreciate it. As a longtime citizen, 20 plus years in the city and a property owner in several areas, this is a subject that's near and dear to me and to my family. I live at 10906 Bar X Trail. My name's Charles Roberts again. I'm within 200 feet of that proposed zoning change property. I would just point out 2 or 3 things real quick today. First, as a property owner so close, I knew when I bought the property years ago and when I bought another property on the same street that, again, within 200 feet, that I took a chance that I was going to see retail development below me, commercial development. That's the way it was zoned, and I understood it and I was ready for it. Always have been. We know it's going to happen in our area. And I parrot a lot of what's said by my colleagues and friends here. I would love to have certain types of commercial properties, but even I know that I don't get to choose them all the time. But right now the zoning is, and I understand it, and that's the risk I was ready to take. Now you have a developer coming in asking for new zoning, and they want to change the rules a bit on us. In the master plan of the city, which I believe may not have been reviewed and approved for at least 6 years now, and it says it's got to be reviewed every 5 years. So I'm worried about that from the start, but I read the whole document, and the PUD definition, or at least the spirit of it in the master plan, says mixed use, commercial, residential, and you can read right within it that the mixed use part, the residential part says with zoning similar to everything else around it, and I think the spirit was retail space with somebody that could live on top of some retail space, doctor's offices, things like that. And now what we're looking at is hundreds and hundreds of apartments in one valley, and we see it happening all up and down the strip. So again, I'm going to end there and just say that I understood the zoning moving in. I'm still okay with it. But if you consider rezoning now, I would like to have a reconsideration of what a PUD really is and what we intend for the city with it, because I know it wasn't high density apartments everywhere. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Sabrina McGowan.
Good evening. My name is Sabrina McGowan, and I live at 10902 Bar X Trail, directly above the proposed PUD. I am not opposed to development that benefits our community. However, there is nothing beneficial in this PUD application, and I strongly oppose it. The PUD is mostly high-density rental units that will lead to increased traffic and congestion, pedestrian accidents, crime, noise, decreased property values, trespassing, and strain our first responders and schools. My concerns are shared by hundreds of other Helotes residents. So far, 257 residents who have signed a petition to express their opposition to this project, along with those who have written to and spoken before this commission and our city council. The only people who spoke in favor of this project during the previous public hearings work for Franklin Construction, the company building M&O Partners high-density apartment complex in New Braunfels. I've also received numerous emails and phone calls over the past few months and met with several dozen concerned residents at our home. I understand that in order to live in Helotes, affordability can be an issue, and in some communities, the compromise is rental units. However, Your responsibility is to uphold our zoning ordinances to benefit our residents. We are already surrounded by 6 rental communities built and under construction within 4 miles of Old Town Helotes for a total of 1,358 rental units. That number will drop by a few units as some of the apartments at the live work development in Old Town are being converted into commercial space, by the way. I hope the commission will listen to the residents of Helotes as it did 4 years ago when the motion to recommend another PUD for 46 townhomes in Iron Horse Canyon failed unanimously. The commissioners believed it wasn't in the best interest of the city and agreed with many of the reasons raised by residents, ranging from increased traffic and congestion to concerns that a high-density development would cause a negative impact on surrounding property values. There's much less property that's commercial that is available in Helotes since these 21 acres were zoned B3 in 1982. Additional sit-down dining restaurants, specialty shops, entertainment venues, and a variety of professional services are becoming more necessary to fulfill the growing needs of our residents. The entire property should remain zoned for commercial development to ensure our community has the best opportunity to bring in services and businesses on all 21.7 acres to add value and convenience for our residents. The 15+ acres for rental units do not benefit Helotes. I'm asking that you not recommend this PUD to the City Council. We know that Helotes is special because of our history, charm, and beauty, and those are qualities that will never exist in a high-density rental development. The proposed PUD will only enrich M&O partners and cost Helotes. Thank you.
Thank you. Mark Salinas.
Hello. My name is Mark Salinas, and I live at 11002 Bar X Trail with my wife and my son. Our view overlooks Old Town Helotes, and I'm here today to object the proposal to build apartment units. We don't want to see apartment units outside our window. We do not want to see them today, tomorrow, or ever for that matter. However, we would be excited to see a retail store in that area instead. For example, Trader Joe's. I think someone else mentioned that before. That would benefit our community. Apartment units do not benefit our community. We want to enhance this loving place called Helotes, not destroy it with apartment units. We enjoy living here, want this place to be a thriving community. Apartment units do not accomplish that.
Thank you. Roy Horn.
I'll be speaking in favor of the project. Roy Horn, 15001 Old Bandera Road. I was chairman of the Theme City Committee back in the 80s, served on the very first EDC, have been involved in various committees. This project is the kind of thing that we always wanted to see. It does have commercial up front. They have considered very carefully the green belts. I know the owner of the property negotiated for months to try to save green belts. As we've seen lately, plenty of people have cut down trees and or paid the fee and cut them down. And I think this is a project where things have been considered. This is not an apartment complex. It's a mixed use development. And from the time that that zoning was enacted, development has changed. Now mixed use, look at the Pearl. I know that's downtown and this is Helotes, but a new zoning is reasonable. This is the kind of thing cities look for. Residential in the back, different kinds of residential. Green belts, jogging tracks, restaurants. This does have that. And I don't think a lot of people realize how much has gone into the planning and the changes to the original plan. But I think it's good for Helotes. We always wanted to see this kind of thing in Helotes, and we don't have it. And I'm in favor. Thank you.
Thank you. Solomon Orozco.
No comment.
Isidoro Orozco? Stan Goodson.
Stan Goodson. On the form, I put my home address, but on the development at 14108 Bandera Road, very close to where the development is. And I did have concerns and, met with Roy Horn so I could get a better picture of what's really going on. And what he did say is true. It's not an apartment complex, which I want to make sure of. It's a very nice development. They have considered Helotes. I understand everyone's concerns about traffic, things of that nature. And I would feel like the city would handle that. I'm trusting that the city knows what they're doing, and the zoning commission takes all that into consideration, how many police there are and all those sorts of matters. So I'm trusting that this development is well planned and executed properly with coordination with the city. So of course I'm in favor of it. And I've been here since 1965 when there was like 300 of us. And I've seen changes, and it's, it's very different, but I felt like this is something that, like what I'm developing, that would complement Old Town and that it would bring more business to it. So I'm hoping and praying that it's the right thing, but it's your decision. So I'm fine with either way that you guys decide, but I'm in favor. Thank you.
Thank you. I've worked through the list of folks who've turned in cards, but I'd like to give an opportunity for anyone who hasn't signed up. If they arrived late or wish to speak, this would be an opportunity to approach the mic. Okay, we will call an end to the public hearing at 7:32 and move on with our agenda. As you all know, this particular item comes up later on, so sit tight. We are at citizens to be heard. Michael, I don't believe we have anybody signed up for other items tonight, right? Okay, so we can move to item 5 on our agenda, which is discussion and action on the minutes of the regular meeting that was held of Planning and Zoning on October the 3rd. You all should have that in your materials. So if there are any revisions or corrections, this would be the time to point them out, or we can have a motion.
I will move to approve the minutes of the regular meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission dated October 3rd, 2023.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, so the motion is to approve the minutes as submitted of the regular meeting of Planning and Zoning, October 3, 2023. All in favor, please signal aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes are approved. Michael, they're not up here, are there?
Want them up there again?
No, the actual formal minutes are not here.
No.
Okay, I'll get them later.
She'll get them soon.
No problem. All right, we will move to item 6 tonight. This is a long item. Allow me to read it out and then we'll move forward. Discussion and action on a request by Easy Signs for approval of signage under Municipal Code of Ordinances, Chapter 66 signs to reflect the rebranding for Walmart at 12550 Leslie Road. This includes 4 parts: updating the external facing of 2 existing monument signs pursuant to Code Chapter 66, Section 49, updating external facing of 11 existing wall signs pursuant to Code 66, Section 51, installation of 6 new wall signs and associated size and number variances pursuant to Code Chapter 66, Section 51, and establishing a master sign plan as requested by the Planning and Zoning Commission pursuant to Code Chapter 66, Section 71. Michael, is there anything from staff beyond what you all have provided to us? Or would you like to introduce this in any way?
Yes, let me just kind of go through it really quick. So I'm gonna kind of go down to the monument signs first. So these are in order from A to O, but we would tackle the monument signs first. I think it's just easier that way. And then the way they're broken down after that is gonna be your front elevation, which would be facing Leslie Road. Your left elevation would be facing Bandera Road, and then your right elevation as submitted by the sign company would be off of Business Parkway. So these are the 2 monument signs that are currently existing. So you'll see that the proposal is just basically they're refacing them. I believe that they're just a little bit darker in blue color. That's pretty much it.
So the size is the same?
Everything's gonna be the same. Yep. So this you guys might be familiar with. If you look at the left-hand side, this is what was submitted back in 2020. And then new signage is included on the right-hand side. So one of the things I'd like to point out is, first of all, they submitted this without the actual tenants, which are currently FedEx and Subway. So I can show you that on one of the elevation pieces, but I'll get to that in a second. So the square footage you'll see at the very bottom on both sides are gonna be, you're gonna see that back in 2020, including the tenant signage, we were at 735.47 square feet. With new additional signage, because they were able to consolidate and make the signs a little bit smaller, total signage square footage is gonna be down or decreased to 705.03 square feet. So the way they're broken down is the way they submitted them. So for example, we just wrote this agenda based on the way it was submitted. So you have your Walmart sign A. So we didn't separate the little spark that had been done in the past. It is listed on this chart, but we just kind of went through the letters all the way to letter O. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Any questions on that so far? Okay, so then what we provided is just the different elevations for you. This is just what was submitted, and then from there, we kind of inserted the information for you. So just want to really quick show you the front elevation. These are the tenant signs that they excluded, but I didn't include them in the total square footage because those aren't going away. So at some point, there was talk, I think in 2020, of getting rid of the tenant signage, but they didn't do that this go around, so. Okay.
Okay.
So let's look at the front elevation here. Basically, that's gonna be letter A, sign A. It's an existing one. The proposal is just basically gonna be the same thing. They're just refacing it.
Okay.
So why don't we pause there?
Okay.
I mean, is there a representative from the applicant here this evening? Okay, so not.
Okay.
So we've all reviewed this and it goes through, it's pretty clearly laid out what is each letter and what sign is being refaced, and there are half a dozen new ones. Do you want to maybe skip to that just to make sure folks are on the same page about the new signs? They largely were in the auto section.
So to be clear, all the other ones are just refaced. We're not doing
Right,
any new
with the
size
exception
or
of
anything.
one, I think it went from grocery to market, but it's a swap.
Okay.
So this is one of the first ones that's new. This was non-existing. And now there is a sign that's gonna say vision in the front. This is still front elevation. So that's a brand new sign. They've added. Secondly, they've added another sign here that says pharmacy drive-through. This is again also in the front elevation at the very right-hand corner. Before you take the left to hit the pharmacy, they've added a sign there. And then this is where we kind of made that swap that we were talking about. Again, this is just a swap, so it's not technically a brand new sign. But to your point, the rest of the signs are gonna be on the left elevation, which is gonna be in the auto center. So you're gonna see here that they're adding a sign over the third bay here, oil change. They swapped out lube for oil change here, and then tires stayed the same. It's just a different color. Lastly, they added numbers. These are brand new signs as well. So they're counting down from 3, 2, 1 as opposed to 1, 2, 3. Right.
Thank you, Michael. So let me open that up to questions from, or comments from the commission on any manner of these items, whether it's the monument sign or the updating the existing or the addition of the new ones. If there's comment or question.
So it's a total of 3 new signs,
Total of 6.
6 new signs. So the pharmacy drive-through, the vision, and then the oil change there.
One oil change and then the number 1, 2, 3.
Okay, so they are adding the 1, 2, 3.
Correct. Which is sign M.
Any other comments, questions?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make some comments if I might. I realize that the number of signs is not consistent with our code. However, our code is not designed for a building that's 550 feet across. It's designed for a 30, 40, 50 foot maybe storefront. I think that the signage actually on this revision, well, one, I'd like to ask maybe a question. The master sign plan that is proposed as a part of this item D actually incorporates all of the rest of this together as part of that master sign plan. And then as long as any future changes come to staff that don't violate the master sign plan, that they can make those refacing and things of that nature without having to come back to planning and zoning.
Correct.
Right.
So
That's the concept of the
stick
master
to the
sign.
site plan here.
Mhm.
Yep, they'll be fine.
So my comment is that I think that it's consistent with the size of the building. I don't think the addition of a number 1 or a 2 or a 3 is significant. It certainly doesn't add to the square footage. The total square footage of signage is actually smaller now with this revision. And the bulk of the signs that we do have really identify where to go into the building. And so while they're technically wall signs, they're more directional in a sense, the vision, auto care. So I'm in favor of the change, especially as it comes to the addition of a master sign plan for this building.
Thank you. Ann?
I have to agree. I wasn't here in 2020 when it first came up, but all these additional signs, they all have a purpose. They're not superfluous. They're not over advertising. They're actually helping the customer find the place they need to be. So I think even the drive-through pharmacy, is that going to be 2 signs there or just 1? That's just the 1.
It's 1.
Yeah, these are all very helpful and will help the traffic and help people know where to go. So I don't have a problem with these.
Anything just?
Just more of a technical. So this, forgive me, I know we talked about this in 2020, but I think that the genesis of this was actually a variance at the time of the master plan approval of this project. Is that correct? I think Alex would probably know the best on that. Was that because I think we had multiple signs. I think we went over, but there was some variances granted. And then basically what we're asking now is to codify a master plan, which puts into place those variances that we've been kind of kicking down the road in a sense as they've been swapping signs out. Is that kind of a fair assessment of what this is ultimately doing?
It is, and it allows for the staff to administratively handle changes that are what I will call non-substantive. If they have a new sign, they want to put up a brand new sign, they still have to come back here.
Yeah.
But if they want to do much of what they're doing here, they would not need.
And so this ultimately codifies like the number and square footage of what they're proposing currently, and so that a 1-for-1 swap, but if they made an amendment to it, that I know we said that, but just restating that it would require them to come back before this board. Okay. Nothing further.
Okay. If there is nothing further, at this point, we can have a motion. I know it's a long item. If there's consensus about it, you could roll it all into one with 4 parts. But I do ask for this point a motion.
And do you want the whole thing read or do you say A, B, C, and D?
I think you can do A, B, C, and D.
Okay.
I can read it out to put it on the record.
Okay, well, I will move to approve the.
It's a recommend.
Actually, it's an approval on there. Is that incorrect? It should be recommend?
This is a recommendation item. Yeah.
Yes, because there's variances. It should be recommended.
Okay, because you have approval here. Okay, so I move to recommend approval of the request by Easy Signs for approval of signage under Municipal Code of Ordinances, Chapter 66 signs to reflect the rebranding for Walmart located at 12550 Leslie Road, Helotes, Texas, 78023, identified as BCAD property ID number 1175530, and including paragraphs A, B, C, and D in item 6 of the agenda.
Is there a second?
Second.
Fuck. So any discussion further, any discussion of the motion? Anything further add?
No.
Buck?
No, sir.
Jason?
No, sir.
So just to read it out and bear with me here, the motion is to recommend approval of the request by Easy Signs for signage under Code of Ordinances, Chapter 66 signs to reflect the rebranding of Walmart at 12550 Leslie Road, Helotes, 78023, identified as BCAP property number 1175530, and includes 4 parts. A, updating the existing facing of 2 existing monument signs pursuant to Code, Chapter 66, Section 49. Updating the external facing of 11 existing wall signs pursuant to Code, Chapter 6651, Section 51. C, installation of 6 new wall signs and associated size and number variances pursuant to Code of Ordinances, Chapter 66, Section 51. And D, establishing a master sign plan as requested by the Planning and Zoning Commission pursuant to Code, Chapter 66 signs, Section 71. All in favor of the motion, please signal aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is approved and will go on to City Council. Thank you. We'll move on to item 7 tonight. And I should note at the outset that there was a typographical error with item 7 in that it is not for establishing a PUD, but amending one. And so the item for number 7 is discussion and action on a request by Killen, Griffin, and Fairmont for a planned unit development amendment for Bandera Ranch, a mixed-use commercial and residential project on property zone B3 located at 15030 Bandera Road, 78023, identified as BCAP property number 242013. Michael, did you have anything from staff in addition on this one?
No, but we do have a presentation.
Okay.
From the applicant.
Great, thanks. And I've asked to limit these to 10 minutes at most. And name
shorter
and
than that.
business address for the record, please.
Sure. Ashley Fairmont, Killing Griffin and Fairmont, 10101 Reunion Place, San Antonio, Texas.
Thank you.
Nice to see you all. I'm here tonight on behalf of the project developers for Bandera Ranch PUD, Paravel Capital and SCC Development. It's been about a year since we were before you guys before with the initial request for the PUD. So since that time, there has been a lot of engineering work done, architecture work done, and the site plan has really started to be refined. And just so you all are aware, still going through that platting process with Michael and his team, but hope the plat will be approved soon. And then the project, you'll start seeing some actual development on the site. So what we're asking for this evening, can go to the next slide. We know where it is. Sorry, the next one. So this was the original PUD site plan. So we're not asking for any changes to the actual language of the PUD, but we're just switching out the site plan. So this was the original plan. And then if we can skip forward, maybe, okay. So what you see as changes in the plan, which will be the next slide, things that we think are all very positive, and it's just to the residential piece. So first, an increase in garages. So the original plan had garages, street parking, tucked under parking, but now there will be an additional 98 2-car garages, which we think will really benefit the project, and the market is shown that is in demand. The unit mix has changed slightly, so some additional 1-bedrooms, a few additional 2, but then added some 3. So a little bit of change to the unit mix. Units generally, though, have gotten bigger in the project, so they've all increased in size. And then the buildings are being set back a little bit further from the streets and from the property boundaries. So the setbacks in the actual PUD aren't changing, but what's shown on the site plan is they're a little bit further back, and that allows for, particularly on scenic loop, additional space for detention, landscaping, public improvements, those types of things between the actual structures and the roadway. And then there's also additional green space that's in the new plan. Forward. So here's the revised plan, and you can see it may not jump out at you right away, the changes, but there are the additional garages in this plan, as well as the change in the unit mix. There's some green space added to the center of the project, and then also around the boundaries additional green space, and again, that space for detention, public improvements, and other things, landscaping. I think maybe go to the next slide, Michael. And this just shows the comparison of the two plans. So with that, those are the only changes that are being made, but we did trigger an amendment with the change in the site plan. So that's what we're requesting for approval. I'm happy to answer any questions. Also, Garrison Welch with Paravel Capital, the residential developer, is also here as well. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Maybe stay there in case there are questions. So I'd open it up to the commission for questions. Maybe I'll just start with the first one. There's no change proposed for ingress or egress. That has stayed the same.
Yes, sir.
Questions or comments?
Straightforward.
Jason?
Yeah, so forgive me, I was trying to read this and it's a little blurry, the version that I got online, but has there been much in the way of change? So you've added some garages. It seems like you've actually decreased the sort of dwelling units in a sense because you're reducing the number of bedrooms. I think there's probably a net reduction in number of bedrooms in the units. So has that changed like the impervious cover significantly, or anything else significant about the project with regards to tree preservation or anything like that? It doesn't seem like it's changed too terribly much, but
No, I don't think there's a significant change. If anything, there might be more pervious cover in the project now, but not a significant change from what we presented to you previously.
and no change to the retail strip. It looks it's the same to my eye.
It's the same, yes.
Okay.
And else.
My only comment, Mr. Chairman, is that I appreciate the fact that a lot of the residents, when this first came up, were concerned about scenic loop, and this actually takes all of the buildings much further away from scenic loop than it was before. Although I will say that in my experience, most time detention ponds are not the most attractive thing to look at. So
And this will be an earthen
yeah, I
detention,
was gonna say,
so it'll be grassed.
because many of them go unmaintained for lengths of time.
Right,
Ugly chain link fence and.
Absolutely, and I will say that this is at the front door of the project too.
Yeah, so
There's a lot of interest in keeping it well maintained.
I think most of the changes are definitely positive.
Thank you. The setbacks, what were they previously, or how much have they increased? I know they've gone up to 100, well, depending where, but.
So the minimum setback in the PUD, and if you can see the small dashed red line, that's 40 feet.
Okay.
So a pretty significant increase. I mean, they're over 100 feet. And then I think the other major increased change, probably I think is a positive, is the other side of the property, which is technically the northern side of the property, and further setback from those residences.
Very good. Any other questions?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So at this point, we can have a motion, and I would just note this is a recommendation item. And again, this is a plan unit development amendment as opposed to establishing PUD.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to recommend approval of discussion and action on a land use request by Killen Griffin Fairmond PLLC for an amendment to a planned unit development establishing Bandera Ranch, a proposed mixed-use commercial and residential project on property zone general business district B3 located at 15030 Bandera Road, Helotes, Texas, 78023, identified as BCAD property ID number 242013.
And to be clear, you're recommending approval?
Yes.
That is the action. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
So any discussion of the motion, Jason? And anyone else? So the motion is to recommend approval of the land use request by Killen Griffin Fairmont for the planned unit development amendment for Bandera Ranch, a proposed mixed use commercial and residential property zone general district E3 located at 15030 Bandera Road, Helotes, and identified as BCAD property ID 242013. All in favor, please signal aye.
Aye.
Opposed? This motion is approved, and we'll head on to City Council. Thank you. Item 8 tonight, discussion and action on a land use request by MNO Investment Group for a planned unit development establishing trailhead at Helotes, a proposed mixed-use commercial and residential project on property zone general business district B3 located at 14410 Bandera Road, Helotes, and identified as BCAP property IDs 242-100, 1097-255, and 242130. Michael, anything from staff beyond what you all have forwarded to us?
No, other than also a presentation for this.
Yep, the applicant is here tonight. Good evening, come on up. Welcome back, name and business address, please, and 10 minutes, if you go ahead.
Yes, hi, this is David Morin with M&O Partners, and we are out of New Braunfels, Texas. We really appreciate the feedback that was given to us this past summer, both by planning and zoning and city council. And we've worked extremely hard to incorporate that feedback into our new and improved plan for the trailhead at Helotes. And we really think that this is going to be a great community building asset for the city of Helotes. If you go to the next slide. So here's our new and improved concept. I'll just kind of go through the major changes that we made based on the feedback given by planning and zoning, city council, and a lot of the citizens. So the first big concern that we had on the previous plan was there's too much density. There's too much density. Well, in the previous plan, we had 366 living units. We've reduced that to 220 units. When you take that and you look at it on a per acre basis on the entire project, you're at about 10 units an acre, which is equivalent to what's allowed in Old Town Helotes. This is a total reduction of 146 units, which I think really goes to show that we've really tried our best to listen and to really incorporate the feedback that was given to us. And I think it's a better project because of it. The second big item, this was something that was really first mentioned with planning and zoning, was the building heights. We had a 45-foot building height proposed. It was suggested, hey, we do not want you to exceed the height of the existing zoning, which is 40 feet. We changed the building height to be 35 feet, which is less than the existing zoning. And really reduces the project to being only 2-story units. There was some objections to the 3-story units, and we said, you know what, we've listened, let's cut those out. Let's do all 2 stories here. Another comment was apartment style units. These are units that are stacked on top of each other, where there's someone living above someone else or someone on the bottom level. So what we did is we said, you know what, let's take single family homes, let's take duplexes, let's take townhomes, let's design them in a thoughtful way using a hill country aesthetic. And let's sprinkle a variety of building types throughout the project to keep it interesting and also to address this concern from residents. Another item, and this is an item I think we heard tonight, is we want more retail. Helotes wants to become a destination for retail. You want to not have to go to La Cantera, not have to go to Bernie, just to experience that kind of restaurant and dining, some of the cool new, destination retail concepts that are really popular today. And so we upped our retail to 40,000 square feet, just under 40,000 square feet. And to put that in perspective, if you combine the square footage of El Chaparral, Floor's Country Store, the Cracked Mug Coffee House, B Daddy's Barbecue, and Helotes Country Club, you're right there under 40,000 square feet. So we're really adding a lot of retail to the project, to the city. And we really think it's going to complement Old Town. And we think a rising tide can lift all boats and bring more people to Old Town, fill some of those empty spaces that the residents were talking about that are in Helotes, and just make this a place that people really want to go to, because Old Town's a really cool place and Helotes is a really cool place. Finally, I think the other one, this is kind of a minor comment, but we took it into consideration as well. There was some discussion about some food trucks, and said no food trucks. I can't also create a zoning, there's no like specific zoning category for chicken restaurants. But that's another thing we've heard from the city and from the residents is, no more chicken places. So, I mean, I can promise that we won't, but I can't put it in the PUD because there's no real classification for that. Unless we can, Michael, and I'll gladly do that. So throughout this presentation, I've interwoven some quotes that we've received from community support letters. I don't want to, take too much time. I asked the city to circulate these letters to planning and zoning and city council. I can read them if you'd like, but these are just a lot of, we've gotten a lot of community support for the project. So I hope that those letters were sent out to you guys and you were able to review them. So this is the updated site plan. As you can see, we have 220 townhouse, duplex, and single family homes. We have a total of about 40,000 square feet of retail. And as I elaborated before, it's a pretty significant amount of retail. No buildings are going to exceed 2 stories in height. We heard that loud and clear, and we've decided to incorporate that. And the other big thing is we're going to have large tree buffers in greenbelt areas because we've heard from residents of Helotes that trees are very important. Another thing about this property is the property owner really wants to preserve the trees in front of her property. She has a deep care about Helotes. She really liked our project proposal because we're bringing in retail concepts that can actually live with a tree barrier in front, where some of the other concepts would kind of skip Helotes if that was the case. They wouldn't have enough visibility. They want to have a parking lot in front of the strip center so they can have their signage out and people can see from the road. The retail that we're proposing is different. This is sit down. This is community retail. This is going to be really fun.
I'm going to go to the next slide.
Yeah, next slide. So here are some renderings. This is conceptual for the retail. We have in this first one, we're planning to have a food hall with restaurants and also a dog park bar. I have had several conversations with the owner of Hops and Hounds. He also sent in a letter of support for the project. He's very, very interested in this site. He grew up in Helotes. I think he went to Marshall High School. Great guy. And he's interested in bringing his concept, not just Hops and Hounds, the dog park bar, but a concept called Hops, Hounds, and Playgrounds, where you can also bring your kids, have a family kind of activity for the day. It's going to be pretty cool. And then we're also going to be putting a splash pad into the site. We know this is very, very popular. And so we're going to be weaving that throughout the retail. We're going to have a community area for a splash pad for kids. If you guys have been to the Pearl Brewery, you can tell the splash pad is so utilized. There are always kids playing. Very dynamic, very fun. It's just a great community gathering tool. So we're going to be incorporating that into the retail portion of the plan. And then there's a rendering there of a restaurant space too, because we do want to have restaurant spaces, especially with outdoor dining, indoor and outdoor dining, kind of creating that really cool Helotes feel that you get in Old Town. And you can keep going, Michael. The residential renderings, I think, show a real consideration for the hill country aesthetic and a very high quality design. You can see the townhomes have a combination of limestone, metal. You've got limestone in the duplex buildings. You've got board and batten. It's a very nice hill country aesthetic that I think will really blend in with Helotes. And then here you can see the residential materials palette. I think really it's going to be a very high quality, high end project. And you can keep going. Finally, in summary, I think, it's fairly clear that we've really taken the feedback into consideration, incorporated it into the plan while also retaining the elements that our supporters really love about the project. And I appreciate your time and consideration today.
Thank you very much. And why don't you stay there, because I'm sure there'll be comments and questions. So I'll go ahead and open it up and just ask for a little bit more elaboration on the proposed retail at the moment. So you mentioned the splash pad and the dog park, food bar, whatever you called it. Is that in your calculations? Is that part of the retail footprint, if you will?
So that's separate from the 40,000 square feet. And the way we're looking at that is we want to bring in a community experience. And so how do you do that? Well, if you look at like some of the most high performing office developments, if you look at some of the most high performing retail developments, they have common area space. So in an office, this could be a really nice courtyard, a nice atrium. For retail, like at the Pearl, for example, it could be a green lawn and the splash pad. So we're committed to putting those elements into the retail and then building the brick and mortar around it. So this is a great place you can experience and enjoy.
Thank you. I'll open it up to others up here for comments or questions for the applicant.
I do have a question about the last time, I don't know if it was at our meeting or the city council's, but you stated that you really didn't think you could reduce the height or the number of units because there was no way it could be profitable. So now today you're telling us, oh, wow, you not only did you reduce the numbers, you reduced the height, all this, I don't understand and it's still profitable for you, obviously, or you wouldn't be presenting. So which is the truth? I don't know. I'm confused about that.
Yeah, no, I mean, I appreciate it. So we reduced when we were saying, oh, we can't reduce the density for the apartment style development. We were talking about an apartment style project. This is a different kind of development. These are townhomes. These are single family homes. These are duplexes. So it's different economics, and this was able to work.
But the units were reduced no matter what kind of project it is to 220.
Yeah, so we're actually able to get much higher rent for the larger, higher quality type of development that I think was requested by planning and zoning and city council.
So you're saying that the rent's going to go up even higher than the original rent that you had proposed?
Yes, yeah, per the request of the planning and zoning and kind of what we had heard from the community.
Okay, so what is that going to be?
Yeah, so the average will be about $2,200 a month.
That wouldn't be for a one bedroom though, would it?
That's the average. So the majority of the units are going to be 2-bedroom. So the 1-bedrooms will be about $1,800 a month, and the 3-bedrooms are going to be about $2,500 a month.
Do the units have yards, little yards attached, or?
They do. Yeah, they're going to have little yards. That's something we found is really important in this kind of development, is having some yards, some space for kids to play, some space to kind of relax. And I think that's what helps you get those rent premiums.
I mean, my biggest concern is traffic. Right now, according to TxDOT, right where you're going to build daily, north and south, there's 27,000 vehicles that traverse that. And you're going to dump, what, 2 and 3 bedrooms have 2 parking spaces. So say alone, those are 2 parking spaces. I mean, you're going to add 500 vehicles a day minimum. So you're going to you alone are going to push the number towards 30,000 vehicles, that the bulk of those are going to have to make a U-turn. So they're going to cut in front of other traffic, impatience, distractions, everything that goes along with that. And then they come up to Scenic Loop. So in the last 3 years at Scenic Loop, according to TxDOT, Scenic Loop alone, there's been 17 collisions there in 3 years. At 1560, there's been 77 collisions, and Old Bandera Road, there's been 3 collisions. So the traffic alone is definitely concerning, because on Bandera Road in 10 years, there's been 185 collisions, and Bandera Road is ranked number 96 out of the top 100 most congested roads in Texas. We're in the top 100, and we want to add another apartment, townhome apartment, whatever it is. But I like how one of my fellow citizens said there's 6 apartment complexes in 4 miles. that are either built or under construction. I just don't really feel we need more apartments. Listening to my citizens, I agree also. Date night, higher end restaurants, nicer restaurants, entertainment, the amenities that you're proposing, I feel are amenities for the townhomes apartments, for those folks living there, not necessarily myself. Pickleball and all that stuff, we go to the church for pickleball. There's pickle and chicken. I know the city itself is thinking about enhancing the park system in Helotes with dog parks. Splash pad, we probably wouldn't have been able to use it this year because of water restrictions. So it, to me, is a moot point. And I don't have family members or children that are going to play there anyways, and it's probably going to be packed. I worry about the school. Helotes Elementary was built in the school year of 1950, 1951. They only have 2 second grade classes. So in those 3-bedroom apartments, those are probably where the residents are going to be. And we got what, 46 or 2-bedroom or 10 2-bedroom apartment or 4-bedroom apartment, 3-bedroom apartments rather. Yeah, there it is. So you got 2-bedroom, 112 units, 3-bedroom, you have a total of 56. So those folks more than likely will have children, school-age children, which is going to add congestion, school bus, because you're zoned for, I'm really worried about Helotes Elementary being pushed to the brink. So the overflow would be Kuntz Elementary, more traffic back down to Leslie Road, 1560, or if they're bilingual, they would go to Los Reyes. So the traffic, the first responder resources, the city leadership, Mayor Whitehead and the city council, we finally got the police staffing up, and now we're going to put another burden on our first responders. Traffic, the school system, I think it's just really, really going to push us.
Yeah, well, I mean, we can't have it all, right? And I think one of the things we showed at the last planning and zoning meeting were the different scenarios for a pure B3 use of the property. We showed 3 different scenarios, all of which, the traffic counts from the pure B3 heavily exceeded what would happen with a mixed use. And I think it's pretty intuitive. I mean, I don't think you need to really even, I think you can just kind of think about it. When you have residents, they're really coming in and out of that place just a couple times a day. I mean, do you guys, when you're coming, are you leaving your house like every single hour of the day?
I believe at the last meeting, was it the Institute of Transportation Engineers researched it today, and a retail development is 38 trips per day per 1,000 square feet of development. A apartment development is 38 trips per day per 1,000 feet. So to me, it kind of seems to void itself out. Retail, apartment, townhomes, it seems to be the same.
Yeah, I'm not sure what, I'm not sure what numbers you're looking at. I don't know if I can convince you on the traffic, and I wish I could, but when I brought the study in last time with planning and zoning, it was pretty clear that the scenarios for B3, which I had our civil engineer put together for us using those Institute of Traffic Engineer numbers, just showed that the B3 is just a more heavy use. People are coming in and out of Walmart. Not saying a Walmart would happen here, but people are coming in and out of those kinds of developments every 15 minutes, every 30 minutes. Quick Trip, I mean, gosh, people are in and out. They're not staying at Quick Trip for 6 hours, right? Where you're staying at your home for 6 hours. So I think that's kind of, I understand the concern. I think everyone's concerned about traffic. I certainly wouldn't want more traffic. I just think in this case, it's going to give you a better deal.
Yeah, I mean, have you engaged TxDOT, the road authority itself?
We have not at this stage in the process.
Okay. And I think, yes, it has 2 entrance exits.
Yes.
Are they going to be one way in, one way out, or multiple?
Right now, it looks like according to our engineer, it's going to have to be right in, right out. That's something we can discuss with the city as to exactly, right now, that's kind of the status quo. We can figure out if there's another way to do it, but that's what we've proposed at the moment.
Because all traffic has to go to Bandera. There's no other way getting around it.
Yeah, and that's true.
Yeah, because you get down by Bandera and 1604, they're kind of by Saltgrass. The traffic counts 41,000 vehicles a day. It's just overwhelming. And of course, I know we all suffer with the construction that's out there, but that's still, the construction is not going to alleviate the number of cars. And there's got to be a breaking point with the traffic.
It's tough. I wish there were some other options to get around. It's very tough with the bottlenecks in traffic, and I think it's affecting everyone's quality of life. But I think in this case, really, this would be a much better way to reduce traffic. I forget how many uses we've scrapped from the B3. I think it's like 80 at this point of very high intensive and heavily traffic producing uses. And I just think the mixed use element of it with an appropriate amount of retail that I think really complements and helps Old Town will be a blessing for traffic rather than a curse.
Michael, am I correct that a traffic impact analysis has not yet been done, right?
Right.
So it would be done if this went forward, that would be done at a later time.
Correct.
Yeah, all my data comes from the TxDOT website.
Fair enough.
And really, I mean, just to make a comment, we could go back and forth on all this. You have your opinion, we have our opinion, everybody has their opinion. But really, when I'm looking at a change like this or an approval, I'm looking at the needs and preferences of the community. We're a small community, and what are the needs and preferences of our community? And we have a petition of over 260 people saying they don't want it. We have people coming here tonight saying they don't want it. I don't think our community needs it. So, I mean, you can cut the size, you can cut this and that, but and I'm not sure I believe that. I'm not sure about this whole profit explanation you're giving. It just it seems disingenuous, but.
Let me interrupt you.
Okay.
I want to.
Yeah, I'm gonna let them, but I'm just saying that that's what the standard I'm looking at is the preference and the needs, and it just doesn't meet it for me.
Sure.
to let you know.
Yeah. And I just want to mention,
No more questions on for me.
I understand. It's okay. Not everyone has to support the project. I do think that there are a lot of community members that do support the project.
Okay.
So I just, hope you keep that in mind. But I do, that's fine. Not everyone's going to support it, but I think a lot of people do.
Jason.
Okay.
Is to follow up a little bit on the traffic thing. So we would turn right, head more or less north on to get out. We have to U-turn at some point. I know you haven't engaged directly with TxDOT, but do we know anything about? I know there's some improvement already slated for the intersections just north of this development. Do we know anything about those that may be of benefit or detriment to this project and those concerns?
I don't know of what TxDOT's planning to do with Bandera. I mean, I've tried to find out for sure. It's sometimes tough, I think, to get information from TxDOT until you're kind of forced to, unfortunately. I will say this, we really want to alleviate any kind of concerns with traffic, do what's best for the community and what Helotes wants versus what TxDOT wants. So we'd be trying to work with Helotes to come up with whatever solution Helotes felt is appropriate. TxDOT, of course, controls Bandera Road. It is an intercity road, right? Bandera Road, Bandera to San Antonio. So they control it. So we would want to try to work with them as well. I just don't know. I think the solution would just be kind of a discussion that we'd have to have. But that's just kind of one of those things that unfortunately you don't get a lot of information from TxDOT until you're kind of forced to.
Okay. Yeah. One of my concerns would be, if this were to move forward, how you talked a lot about the interaction with Old Town, but obviously that's a tough cross, I mean, and to get into your car and drive up and U-turn and then try to find a place to park. I mean, it would be fantastic if there was a, text, oh, we're going to put a traffic light in and you can crosswalk and, all this, and that's kind of an unknown. And so that, that's a little bit of a concern, from that side of things.
I would love that. I think that would be very beneficial for for both sides of Bandera Road and really helping to create more of a true district down here. But it's a little bit out of our control, but I would absolutely be in support of that. I think it would benefit the retail and it would also benefit the residential because you can have interaction into Old Town, which is a really cool place to eat, listen to music, grab a beer with your friends.
And then just real briefly you mentioned the trees. missed a little bit of that, but so you're trying to preserve trees on the frontage and trees interspersed with the cluster development. And you said it was 10 units per acre. And is that, Michael, do we know? I think the PUD talked about a relationship between the zoning and existing zoning status. And how does that relate? Is that a kind of within one of those allowable Rs? That
Yeah,
we would kind of glom onto?
obviously it would still need to be approved by council, but it is allowed.
Okay.
That's one of the conditions of the development project.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I have a question or two and then some comments if I could. I was reading and if I could ask Michael this question here. I'm looking at the exhibit C1, which is on page 124 of 139. So it's a long document that was given to us. And in that, and this is the actual, if this is what city council would act upon should, when they get to it. And so C1 identifies the site plan and is consistent with what you presented here as well. But I have a question on something a little bit further down that doesn't seem consistent, right? So when you look at the site plan, and this is top of page 6 of 21, Michael. You see the same site plan that you show where there has been a road on the bottom left, there's the strip of land that's dedicated to the commercial part and the residential behind it. And in the right-hand side, there's a color-coded section where it talks about the building types: 1 duplex, 3 unit townhouse, 4 unit townhouse, et cetera, right? However, if you go a little further down under the exhibit C2 under development regulations, it lists the usages, and at the bottom of page 8 of 21, and this is the question I have, because it talks about the residential uses, and item A, we're getting there, I think.
It's 126 on the overall document.
Yeah. You might want to start at the bottom and work up. Okay, so right there, a little bit further down, at the top of the next page, it identifies residential housing project that includes detached and attached single family. A maximum of 2 units may be attached in the same building. I'm not quite sure how we get a maximum of 2 units attached in the same building and we get a 3-family unit.
Yeah.
Those two don't sound consistent to me. So I guess if this is the governing document, then it's completely contradictory to the site plan, which identifies a whole lot of 3 and 4 unit buildings on the property. And so I wanted to make sure to bring that up in case that needs to be handled before you get it to city council, because if this gets approved, then your site plan is a moot point.
Yeah, good catch.
So,
Yeah.
I thought that was kind of important. The other thing I wanted to kind of basically say, and I know a lot of my fellow commissioners have identified and a number of things that some of our citizens have also brought up, is that, I mean, obviously our infrastructure is struggling right now. And I don't know, I'm not going to go as far as to say as some, and this may not make everybody happy, but do we need more apartments or rental units? That depends on how many people are out there that want to rent them. Right. So if you want to build 200 and something of them and you take a chance on whether it'll be rented, my guess is that within a year or two, they're going to be rented. Right. So that's not the question. To me, the question is the location of them, not whether or not we need them, not whether or not the school district is going to be able to build another school. I mean, they build high school every couple of years and probably 4 or 5 elementary schools every year, just trying to keep up with the population. The roads are going to be dealing with it. No, I don't have it on official record, but TxDOT's shown their hand. We're probably going to have a super street up and down Highway 16 all the way past Triana within the next 5 to 10 years. Okay, that's coming. I mean, we can see that they're doing it already. It's going to happen. So that's all going to control all of that stuff. My concern really is that when we decide to make a change to zoning, we should be very, very careful about what we allow to change it from and to. This piece of property was zoned B3 because it's one of the very few pieces of property that can house tax revenue for the city. And the city has struggled for years to balance ad valorem taxes, which is a burden on the city, and tax revenue. And by building additional housing, we continue to shift the burden on the property owner and not the tax revenue, which is where we need to have our city balance. This project flies in the face of the need to go to increase the tax revenue rather than the sales tax rather than the other. And also, when you look at this development, there are only a certain type of business can fit in a small strip center that is only maybe 150, 200 feet deep. You're not going to be able to get a bigger retail establishment or a much larger restaurant or places that have that. So there are very few places left in Helotes that we can really generate the additional retail outlet. This is one of them. The city through its Economic Development Corporation, paid a lot of money to get the water and the sewer to go up and down Bandera Road, specifically to develop commercial retail outlets like that. And I think I applaud you for the amazing changes that you've made and have been willing to do so. And I hope that this development goes in a different location, because I think that the people who will eventually live there will appreciate it. My thought is this isn't the right spot for it, though. Those are my comments. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Sure. I ask you to respond to something from the Helotes master plan, just how you would respond to this statement from this document. New development should be compatible in terms of design, density, massing, and scale to adjacent properties.
Sure. Yeah. So when we were looking at the density of the project, and especially after we heard the feedback from planning and zoning and city council from the last go around, we thought that if we can get as close to 10 units an acre for the entire 21 acres, let's do it, So we did. So that's in terms of density, we're matching Old Town Helotes's allowed multifamily density across Bandera Road. In terms of massing, complementing Old Town, we have what we feel is an appropriate amount of retail, but not big box retail, not a strip center that's going to get an AT&T store or something that could be in anywhere USA. We're really trying to bring retailers that are going to stay in Helotes, be in Helotes, have some kind of connection to Helotes. Gray Hardaway, the owner of Hops and Hounds, he grew up, went to Marshall High School. He's really invested in this area. So that's, the retail itself, it's not going to exceed 35 feet in height. And that's not a lot of height. That's about, 2 stories right there for the retail. In terms of the massing around us, there's really, in terms of single family anywhere nearby that we want to be very respectful to. If you look up 100 feet, you'll find the single family. It's basically up elevated on a cliff. So, if you have you're 60 feet above or 80 feet above the rooftops of our property for the residential, we feel like that's appropriate massing. So that's kind of how we considered it. In terms of complementing Old Town, we really wanted to weave trails through the property. We wanted to put parking in the back and cluster it to the sides instead of having it in the front. So when you're driving down Bandera Road, you're not just looking at a parking lot with a couple of trees and some limestone scattered, under the AT&T store. That's kind of how we were looking at it. But I obviously understand,
Yeah, it's interesting. It's maybe a matter of perspective, but you're not next to Old Town. You're on the other side, and Old Town is near, and one could debate whether you're adjacent or not, I suppose, but I see you in sort of a different type of corridor, hence it's zoned differently.
Yeah.
It has been for a while. So one more time around if there's additional comments or questions. Buck, anything further?
You know, it's Helotes. You come to Helotes to grow roots. And I believe this would encourage a temporary population for us. This is a community which I'll be carried out in a box in, you know, there's no doubt about it. And my children will grow up in this community. And I hate seeing it turn into a transient population already with the other apartments within 4 miles. You know, we're trusted for the health, you know, the safety and general welfare of Helotes. Definitely, I think this adds a safety aspect to the motoring public cutting through and or live in Helotes. It makes it difficult for myself with the safety aspect for all of us and the strain on our first responders to support it.
Anything further, Jason? Comments or questions?
Yeah, I have a couple of comments, and just a little bit rambly, so pardon me. I heard a number of comments tonight and also from the community, some of the feedback we got in the emails earlier today and just some scuttlebutt around town that, you know, there's a lot of concern about what goes in this property and what we have in Helotes in regard to, I think, you know, a number of restaurants or upper scale retail, that sort of thing that people are looking for. And I'm struck by, you know, riding my bike through town every weekend and also being up here in the dais and seeing the development that happens all the time in Helotes, that that is another problem that we're confronted with. I've seen, for example, several of the stores in Old Town change hands 4 times in my 7-year tenure here. That is not a sustainable Old Town to my mind. And I think one of the problems is that there just isn't enough people in the area to continue to support these little businesses that we're trying to hold on to and trying to preserve. And so there's an irony that, you know, we sort of don't want this thing. On the other hand, something like this might be really what we do actually need to continue to support Old Town and to try to develop Old Town to what I think we all think it can be. And, you know, I don't know that you're going to get there by putting strip malls in and just limiting it to B3 uses only across the street. I think my concern is that it's going to wind up being a strip mall stop from downtown to some other development outside of our city limits, and it will further isolate Old Town. And we put the PUD in our zoning code just for that reason, that we were trying to develop other things in this town to sort of give it a little bit more energy than it has. And, you know, I think there's some concerns here, in particular with the TxDOT issue and cross traffic. And I'm not convinced that as it stands, we don't know enough to really fully approve of this thing. But I'm also very much not against it in that sense. And that's about all I have to say.
Any other comments?
No, I don't have.
So at this point, thank you, sir. I think we're good.
Oh, you're welcome.
And
Thank you.
Sit down.
We can have a motion that we can then discuss, but this would be the time to introduce a motion if somebody would care to do so.
No, I can do one.
Go ahead.
I move.
It's a recommendation item again.
Yes. I move to recommend denial of the request by MN&O Investment Group LLC for a planned unit development PUD establishing trailhead at Helotes, a proposed mixed-use commercial and residential project on property zoned General Business District B3 located at 14410 Bandera Road, Helotes, Texas, 78023 and identified as BCAD property ID numbers 242100, 1097255, and 242130.
Is there a second to the motion?
I'll second that.
So discussion of the motion, Ann?
No, I have nothing further.
Nothing for sir.
Any other comments? Any comments on the motion? No? Alex?
No, sir.
So I'll read it back and then Alex will do a roll call, okay? So the motion is to recommend denial of the land use request by M&O Investment Group LLC for a planned unit development establishing trailhead at Helotes, proposed mixed-use commercial and residential project on property zone General Business District B3 located at 14410 Bandera Road, Helotes, Texas, identified as BCAT property IDs 242100, 1097255, and 242130.
You can do the roll.
Okay. So you want to clarify the votes?
Yes. I'm
The
sorry.
yes vote is in favor of denying?
Correct. So the motion is to recommend denial. So if you're voting for the motion, you are voting to recommend denial.
Buck Russell.
I vote for the motion.
Ann?
I vote for the motion.
I vote for the motion. Jason?
Against.
So we have a majority in supporting the motion. Motion is approved. This item, as you know, it's a recommendation item, goes to city council on, Michael,
December 14th.
so a month from today, December 14th, will be the final determination when council acts. That brings us to the close of our agenda. I want to thank everybody's participation tonight. Very much appreciate it. If we could have a motion to adjourn. Somebody would care to make one?
Make a motion to.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor of adjourning, signal aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We're adjourned at 8:37.
Good night.